Welcome back to the channel, lads. My name is Coach Christian. This is the BetterMan YouTube channel. If you haven't already, click like, click subscribe, and without further ado, let's jump into today's episode, the truth about hypergamy, or as I like to call it, nature. Your responsibility is responsibility. One of the bitter pills, one of the beauties, paradoxically, of being a man is taking on and accepting reality for what it is and the consequences of reality. Now, when it comes to women, we hear this word hypergamy a lot, especially in these spaces, red pill, whatever you want to call it. It certainly is reality, it's true. And men that are not fully in acceptance of this are still struggling when it comes to women because they have an expectation going into relationships with women, whether it be long-term or just dating women, that somehow if they do something or behave a certain way or are a certain way or provide something, that this rule won't apply to them. Hypergamy won't apply to them. I like to call hypergamy nature because I'm very, very attuned to the idea of us being nature. We are human beings on the planet and we are attuned to nature whether we like it or not. All of the ideas, values, morality, ideologies, politics, religion, all of it, it's all imposed on top of nature. As we've become more intellectual, as we've become more reliant on technology, I believe that that is why we're seeing such a struggle and conflict within a lot of women that live in cities. And most of the women in metropolis cities tend to lean politically on the liberal side and have adopted the ideas of feminism and the ideologies that come with all of that. Women require leadership from something other than themselves. They're not very good internal leaders, so they need leadership. That is where they seek masculinity, masculine leadership. The problem in modern culture is that men have slowly succumbed to the toxicity of feminism as well, but evolution has not been overridden. What science and progress did, so when I say hypergamy, essentially it just means women's desire to always be in the best possible situation for themselves and for their offspring if they have any. They are evolutionary programmed to do this. This is not value system for women. It's not a judgment of individual men even. It is the same instinctual behavior that we have as men when it comes to being violent, being a protector, and being reactive to potential threats around us, whether that be real or synthesized. It's very difficult to override that limbic reaction. Women have the same reaction to their surroundings when it comes to mate choice, and that is hypergamy, and it is female nature. It cannot be overridden, it cannot be argued with, you can't negotiate with it. There's no need for men to personalize all of this and take it personally from a woman when she's telling you, I'm out, I'm leaving. There's no need to argue with it. All you can do as a man is to take the L and to learn from it. Women are incredible focus groups for men, meaning market research. Now, this is a hard one to swallow for men because we have egos. It's a bit embarrassing for men when they've realized that they've fallen into the feminine web. Their masculinity has been exposed, or therefore lack of masculinity has been exposed by the seduction of the feminine. What the woman does is to find within the man the holes in the armor. And that is purely down to her survival. Think of it, it makes perfect sense. For women, they can't fight men physically. So they live in a world where on some level they are physically under threat. So women get this false sense of safety, security that is actually synthesized and it's created by infrastructure and, you know, the police and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, women are vulnerable to men in the physical. That is why they're able to hone in like a heat-seeking missile about whether you as a man are really living up to the words that you were spouting off on dates 1 through 9. 3 months you've got about basically to prove whether you are the man you say you are. And she's going to, through a succession of testing, expose the level of your masculinity. And any woman will do this. This is instinctual, so it doesn't matter whether she's a crazy, purple-haired feminist or a trad wife, conservative, or anything in between, or any variant of that. Women have to take a risk by entering the cave of that man, the world of that man. She wants to find the best possible man. The problem with men these days is that we are also victims of this incredible social conditioning called feminism that hyper-feminized the world and flipped the value of gender and virtuized, that's not a word, femininity, made it moral and made any trait associated with it to be the moral compass of society, especially the secular end of society. So the less religious you are, whether you're a man or a woman, the more likely it is that you believe in the tenets of feminism and femininity, and the woman being the North Star of goodness, safety, morality. Men and boys grew up around women without fathers in the home, whether it be physical or mentally. They were not really there for the last couple of generations. So the boys were without masculine leadership, as well as the women were also out without masculine leadership. That has had a huge effect on society. The girls that were brought up by their mothers without fathers, that has made women not be accountable to, not able to receive masculine instruction directly from men. What we find is nature will not be ruled by nurture, and that is hypergamy. And unfortunately for women, well, for all of us, feminism lied, or at least idealized, a notion of equality that is impossible to exist. It's a little bit like the Princess and the Pea, if you know that story. It doesn't matter what you pile on, how much luxury and lovely ideas, concepts, virtue, value, ideologies, whatever it is, it doesn't matter how much you pile that on top of nature. Underneath, at the core, the nature is still there and it will seep through into society. And that's where we're at. Men were not told this. We weren't initiated by men, by our fathers, to understand this nature. And in fact, the psyop of culture tried to erase this fact. And so men have been dropping like flies when it comes to relationships, where they've been idolizing women, seeing them as the North Star, projecting all of their fantasy and also hope of safety, comfort, pleasure onto these women, ultimately being disappointed, heavily, heartbroken, destroyed, because the women, although attempting to enter into these relationships through the lens of equality and feminism and empowerment, they all leave in the end, or they all end up disrespecting. At best, what happened in my parents' generation was that they were enforced into the relationship. The shame kept them in it, social shame kept them in it, but the respect died because the men were not menning and the women became very combative, competitive, and disagreeable, and were looking for better, and that became unleashed on society once the rules around the family changed, the ideas around family, and that women were given their freedom, their emancipation by men. Paradoxically, once women got unleashed and freed from the restraints of patriarchal ideas around marriage and things like that, which is, patriarchy is not a bad thing. That's just leadership through the masculine. It's the father. That's what patriarchy is. It's always been that way. That's why God is a man, because the men are the ones of the stewards of society, are the men, and that we have not been stewarding, and women have run riot, and their hypergamy has gone into overdrive because there's no harness around it. So it's just constantly going and going and going. And hypergamy will not be quenched if there's nothing stopping it. It needs enforcement. And that's where masculinity comes in. Masculinity imposes physically in a world of esoteric ideas. It imposes masculinity through the physical onto women who live in the esoteric, the feminine. If you don't have masculinity in a society, you just have the esoteric, you just have feelings, and feelings are constantly in flux, and that is ultimately chaotic. Freedom is not just doing whatever you want, whenever you want, no matter what the consequences. That's chaos. Freedom is the ability to operate within a frame that allows for you to make choices. Peterson said this best when he said, the rules of chess are there so that you can play chess. You can do anything you want, but you can't break the rules of chess. And that is brilliant because it's literally what we as a society need at all times in order to be successful, whatever you want to call it. We are now in a post-modernity landscape where affluence and pleasure, hedonism, has become the moral good. If it feels good, it is good. That's the feminine way. They have been allowed to run the show. The lunatics have taken over the asylum, and these lunatics will never be satisfied. That is why men need to impose satisfaction onto them through their instinct of masculinity. It is the counter to femininity. It is the balance to femininity. That's the beauty of it. That's the dance. It's the push and pull. There is no friction if it's just chaos. It's just, there's no harness around the energy. So, that is why it is imperative for men, and that is why I'm here, and that is what I'm doing, and my purpose in life at this point is to wake men up, is to get them back into their masculinity, to stop them being afraid of putting in infrastructure and structure for their own lives and then imposing it on people in their life that they care about, i.e. women and children. That is your role of men. And it starts with yourself. You cannot do it if you've not established that yet and you're near a woman, because the woman will expose the chaos within you. So you must understand any success that's going to come into your life as a man first comes from your own ability to self-impose structure, discipline, commitments into your life, and you start there. And we do that in my world through my BetterMan Academy, the free community, and then also paid communities, coaching with me, and systems that I've developed that will help men reboot and reclaim their value. And then from there, you attract women. You don't chase women, you attract women through your own self-built energy that you have to forge as a man, and that normally will come through some sort of pain. That's the beauty of women. They will reveal to you where you're at as a man. And if you are in that moment where you've been just handed your ass by a woman, she's come into your life, you've completely become besotted with a woman, and then she's left you. That is a beautiful moment for you, sir. That is where men are forged. But you need support, not from women. You need support from the men and a community of men that are like-minded, that are doing this. Collective individualism is what I'm saying and what I'm calling this. Because as men, you have to be an individual. You have to have your own conviction, but you are surrounded by other men that are on their own path too. That is collective. That's the community of men, of individual thinkers, critical thinkers, that are all in support of each other's rise to masculinity again. So if you're interested in what I'm talking about, if this video hit home for you, then you should click here or here, somewhere around here, and watch my video on being a better man and how to be a better man and how to reclaim your value in 2025 and beyond. Go and check out that video, and that will explain everything that I'm talking about in much more detail and the system that I've developed to help men all over the world reclaim their masculinity and ultimately reboot their masculinity. Got over 1,400 members now in my private community, in the free community. Would love to see you in there. So listen, that's the end of this one. Appreciate you all, lads. Appreciate all the support. If you haven't already, follow me on TikTok and Instagram. Same username, betterman.advice. Be sure to subscribe, click the like button and the notification bell to help me here with the YouTube channel. Appreciate you all. Appreciate all the support, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.